Hey everybody, it's Charlene. Today I'm sharing with you 3 cards I made using the new release items from Hero Arts. So here's the first card, here is the second card, and here is the third card. Let's dive right in. First, I'm going to start off by showing you the brand new January My Monthly Hero Kit. It has these beautiful layering stencils here. In addition to this lovely die, you've got the words love and you, as well as a heart that cuts out from the stenciled pieces. Some lovely stamps with sentiments and a few little small images, as well as that watercolor paper. I'm going to start out here with a few of the stencils. I'm going to start with these first 2 and set the other ones aside. Also included in the monthly hero kit, this is the classic kit, is 3 core ink cubes. There's Moss, Azalea, and Summer Sky. I'm going to be working with my full-size ink pad from my crafting stash of the Azalea, and that is the only color of ink that I'm going to be using today. So I've put the first stencil down and I put down a really light coat of that Azalea. And the reason is that I'm going to use the second layering stencil, which gives some detail to those florals. I'm going to use it with the Azalea as well. And I'm going to put the Azalea on there really dark. So I'm going to get a lot more on my brush in order to darken all of these spots. So that way you get these beautifully defined florals, but you're using the exact same color. So once I have everything nice and filled in, I can go ahead and take the stencil off, and you're going to see things are really starting to take shape here. Of course, this would look beautiful with lots of different colors as well. The coordinating heart die actually cuts out a very specific spot in the layered florals. So I went ahead and cut the heart out, and I've set it aside there. You can see that, and I've put down another one of the layering stencils. I'm going to use that heart eventually for a completely separate card. So again, a really light hand with the Azalea for these additional florals that are getting added with the layering stencils. And then here I'm going to go in with that darker hand of the Azalea, but I'm only going to do it here and there because I don't want to add any additional florals. I just want to go ahead and make sure all of the centers are that dark version of the Azalea. I used a little piece of scratch paper to help me out to make sure that I wasn't going over all of those open areas. And now I can bring in the last stencil here, and again I'm just going to go over this really lightly with the Azalea. Now this is more greenery and things along those lines, but I just wanted to fill in the background some more and do it in that monotone color of the Azalea. So I just have different layers of Azalea, and you can see just by varying how light and how dark I use the ink, it created a lot of depth and dimension and made it look really beautiful. For the inset heart piece that I'm going to be using for the other card, I did bring the Azalea up and around all the way on the edges of the heart just to give it a really nice finish around those edges. So now I can go ahead and cut everything out using my rectangle infinity dies. I'm just placing it right around the stenciled image. It's going to fit perfectly on the front of an A2 size card, which is going to be 4¼ inches by 5½ inches. And now I have a piece of Azalea cardstock. So it goes wonderfully with the ink color. And I'm going to be doing some heat embossing. I've taken a sentiment that says "You're the Sweetest" from the kit stamp set, and I'm going to stamp that in embossing ink. Once I get it on there, I'm actually going to stamp it twice so I can get a really nice coverage. I did that off camera. And now I'm going to bring in some white embossing powder and make sure to get some really good coverage on there so that all of my letters are going to fill in when that embossing powder is melted. I've got my heat tool here, and I'm just going to bring it all the way across the edge there. My paper does curl a little bit, but I'm not too worried about that because this piece is going to get glued to my card base, which will help it to straighten back up. Once I have all of the embossing powder melted, I can go ahead and put together our first card. So I'm going to add glue on the back of that heat embossed panel. I'm going to add it to the front of my A2 sized card base. And then I'm going to put some foam tape on the back of our stenciled panel. So that way it pops up over the sentiment and you have that nice azalea colored heart in the center. I'm going to use my scoring board here, which is really helpful when you are trying to layer things and get them in just the right position. I know that because I have my piece of colored cardstock in the corner, that if I put my stenciled piece right over that with the foam tape, it's going to sit right on top of there perfectly. So there is that first card. Now we can move on to the second one. For the second card, I have cut out 3 of the Love word dies in white cardstock, and I'm going to layer them up with liquid glue. I like to use my reverse tweezers when I'm doing this. It's super helpful. I hold one end with the reverse tweezers, add the glue, and then I can put the first part of my die cut down, add more glue all the way along that layer of the die cut, and add my third one. I do this for word die cuts. I do this for images that I have die cut out if I want them to have dimension on my card, but I don't want to be using foam tape. For the word love, I wanted to make sure it was really nice and sturdy because it is going to be going over the top of our pretty heart that we cut out, and I want to make sure those letters don't get all bent and mangled or anything like that. I also cut out one of the love word die cuts from pitch black cardstock, and I'm going to slightly offset the white word onto the black word die cut, so that way I get a little bit of a black shadow back behind the word, and that's going to look really nice when we put it on the heart that we've created. That's going to help it to stand out, because otherwise it could get a little bit lost if we didn't have that shadow. Another thing you could do is die cut that out from vellum, and that will also help it to stand out and not get lost in that heart. I've put some foam tape on the back of my heart to add a little bit of dimension, and I'm going to pop the heart right there in the center of my A2 sized card base, and then I'm going to glue my love word directly across the center of the heart. Now you could also pop up the love if you wanted to, the word die cut, but I didn't want there to be too much dimension because I still wanted to be able to pretty easily mail this card. If you're unfamiliar with the Hero Arts My Monthly Hero Kits, there is a classic version, which is what I've used mostly today, and then there is also a premium version. The premium kit comes with everything in the classic kit, as well as several other items. And you can check out all of that information down in the description. The only item I use today that is in the premium kit is I use the Sparkle Clear Lacquer Pen. So there is our finished second card. In addition to the classic and premium kits, there are add-on items that match the theme. So this is the Ode to Andy Warhol script bold prints. Quite a mouthful, but it is a beautiful red rubber background stamp, and I'm going to bring in my Peony Core ink in order to stamp this onto an A2 sized card panel. It's just a really soft, beautiful shade of pink. It almost has a little bit of a peachiness to it. I love this color very much, and it is great for year-round, but in particular I'm using it here to create another Valentine's Day card. So pretty. I could see you using this for all kinds of different mixed media techniques. In addition to the background stamp, I'm using the vintage Birdcage fancy die. I've cut 2 of the full set of images out from white cardstock, and I took 1 set of the smaller die cuts and I put them on a piece of low tack tape, so that way I can go ahead and color them with that same peony ink. And then I'm going to take the 2 bird cages and I'm going to layer them up just to give the die cut more dimension. Now this is a very beautiful, delicate die. It actually cuts out really well, but you do have to be gentle with it because there is all of that ornate filigree work on there. And I wanted it to have the dimension, but I knew I had to just very carefully dot the glue on there. Otherwise it was going to be too thick. I did bring in some of the white glitter paper from the Glitter Paper Basics pack, and I've cut out 2 little small pieces to glue behind the band of filigree work at the top and bottom of the birdcage. And the reason I'm doing this is because I wanted my birdcage to have some dimension on the front of the card, and I knew that I needed somewhere to put some foam squares. So I have created 2 little spots where I can hide foam squares underneath the bird cage, and then I'll also place half of a foam square up there behind the heart. You'll see that here in just a little bit. Before I do that, I'm going to get my sentiment ready. Here I'm going to be using the Lovebirds and Friends stamps and dies. You can see these are really super cute. I'm just using one of the sentiments, and I'm going to stamp that here in some Intens-ified Black ink. And I do stamp it twice just so I can make sure I get a really nice stamping on there and that I get that nice dark, crisp black line work with it. I cut it out with the coordinating die cut, and I did cut out 2 extra white die cuts so that I can layer them up and have a little bit of dimension to the sentiment. And once I have those all put together, I can go ahead and start putting together my card. This is going to be another A2 sized card. So again, that's 4 1/4 inches by 5 1/2 inches. Here now you can see I've got all of those foam squares on the back of the 2 parts where I've hidden it with the strips of glitter paper. Next, I'm going to go ahead and position where I want my little perch as well as my birds. I'm going to layer my perch with the second white die cut to give it just the slightest bit of dimension off the card. I did the same thing with the 2 birds, which I'm going to glue to sit on top of the perch. But for the hearts, I'm going to leave those separate because I want to have both pink and white hearts scattered around on the card. So for the birds, I have them facing each other. You could definitely make this into a more romantic Valentine's Day style of card. I've chose to make it into a Galentine's Day card. So I kept my birds a little separate from each other, but you could have them right next to each other to make it look like they're giving each other a little smooch. And my sentiment here, I'm coming back in with that peony ink and I'm just going around the edges to create a really nice soft pink glow around the sentiment. And you can see my sentiment works really well for a Valentine's Day card because it talks about friendship and it being a melody. It's very sweet, and so you send this to someone, you have those cute little pink songbirds with that beautiful die cut birdcage and this very lovely sentiment. So I chose to put the birdcage on the left-hand side of the card and then have my sentiment centered on the right-hand side. And now I can glue those pink and white hearts that I have left, just using a wax pickup tool in order to pick up those tiny little die cuts and put them on the front of my card. I'm not going to use any other jewels or embellishments on this card. Those little white and pink die cut hearts are going to work perfectly for that. You also could cut out those die cuts in colored cardstock and not color them with the ink, but I wanted everything to kind of be matchy-matchy. And you'll see with the pink and white hearts, I have some towards the top right-hand side of the sentiment, and then I have some trailing down on the bottom left-hand side of that sentiment. Now I've glued the whole thing to my card base, and that finishes off our third card. I really love how you can see that dimension and see those little birds back behind the birdcage. So pretty. And here are those other two cards we created, one with the heart and then one with the outside stenciled piece. I hope you guys picked up some tips and tricks today. Please be sure to like and subscribe, as well as hit that notification bell so that way I can continue to bring you more crafty content in the future. Until next time, happy crafting.